Oh, good day, everyone. This is Chris back again with the Ancient Scholar, and I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up my review Prometheus. And again, I'm not a professional movie reviewer, and I don't really do this. And really, I just did this as kind of a follow-up to a video that I did earlier, a trailer review. And boy, there was a lot of discussion there. And some people liked what I did, and some people didn't necessarily like it. And you know how YouTube is. So let me go ahead and just kind of give my overall impression of the movie. So the score, I thought the score was excellent. Visuals were stunning, outstanding, excellent. The acting was good. Good, and in some cases it was great. The plot was adequate. It wasn't inept. It had some holes, and there were some things that happened that weren't maybe as consistent as they could have been. So it was kind of a standard plot. And so what happens when we throw all that in the mixer and we mix it up? Well, we get a really good movie. We get a great movie. We don't have a revolutionary movie. We don't have a movie that's going to change cinema or set any trends, but we have a really solid, tense science fiction movie. With that said, I really liked it. It had some problems. It wasn't perfect, but it was a very good, very intense movie. Now, with that said, what I would say is try to go into this movie. And I know it's hard, but try to go in this movie and try to see it as its own movie. If you try to hold it up to something like Alien or Aliens, you may not appreciate it for what it is. Try to appreciate it at least, until the very last end scene, which they really didn't even need to do the ending, in my opinion. It didn't really need to have an. It was nice that it paid homage to the alien thing, but they didn't, did they really need that last scene? They didn't need it. And I suppose that's maybe part of the alien DNA and, the whole space jockey connection, but, or the engineers as they call them. But if you really go in and you look at it as a standalone movie, I think you'll be a bit more impressed with it. With that, is it fair or unfair to compare it to Alien and Aliens? Well, that's totally up to how you want to look at it. I prefer to kind of look at it as it's kind of its own movie, its own standalone movie. What it does is it solidifies this alien universe, for me at least. It really sets the tone for what's going on. You're left with a lot more questions than you are answers at the end of the movie. A lot of questions, very few answers, to be quite frank, but at least you now have a conceptual framework. Okay, this is what the space jockeys are about, or obviously you can go in many tangential directions, but now we have a framework. And what I really liked about it was kind of some of the philosophical angles that they took. And I really liked the fact that when the android was talking to another character, David, the android, was talking to another character, and this character was like, I want to know why they created us, and what quote unquote God thinks of us, and then the android asked, well, what do you think humans thought when they made me? Trying to make that parallel, and then the guy just was really nonchalant about it and said, well, we made you basically because we could. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because then later on in the movie, you find out that there's finally the meeting between the space jockey and the humans, and space jockey really was, basically how aliens are portrayed in movies. Didn't really, well, he was a little, I wouldn't say he was uncaring, because he kind of ran amok and did some damage. He took a few people out. So clearly these engineers that shared some DNA, some lineage that's shared with us. Clearly, some of them at least the ones in this movie, didn't really seem to care a whole lot about us and where we, obviously they care where we came from because they wanted to go there and, it probably looked like run amok on Earth and take all humans out. Now, obviously, why they want to do that and what are their motivations and so on and so forth, pose some great questions. But I do like that kind of that aspect that, hey, maybe at least a way of thinking is, maybe what led to the creation of humanity, it wasn't particularly grandiose, and there wasn't really any particular agenda one way or the other. I mean, it's kind of an interesting way to think about it. Also another way of thinking about it is, basically when I look at these space jockeys, it kind of seemed like it was amateur hour. They were, they basically had a ship full of bioweapons. Was one interpretation of what it was, and something happened, and most of them ended up dying a couple thousand years prior to the beginning of this movie. And then you think, that pretty much happens with human beings too. We do some interesting experiments, we make some interesting things, and sometimes there are unintended disastrous consequences to what we do, and we didn't necessarily mean to do that. And I kind of look at these supposedly higher beings, and they're basically doing the same thing, only on a larger scale. So that was kind of some interesting food for thought, and it kind of maybe a little different way of looking at creation and where we're from and all that is, maybe it's not quite as grandiose as we'd like to think. Anyway, that's an interpretation that you could take from this movie, and I thought, wow, that's a really maybe nihilistic, but maybe somewhat of a realistic way that, hey, maybe humans aren't quite as grandiose as we like to think we are. So there's a humbling way of looking at that. So anyway, I'm just babbling on probably about not much of anything and just throwing out my interpretation, but that's basically my review of Prometheus. It was a very good movie. I definitely recommend it. It's not a hardcore horror movie by any means. There's definitely some, there's some violent things that happen, but it's not a hardcore horror movie by all. It's more of a science fiction, thriller, if you will. But a good movie, I'd say check it out, and take it for what it is. And if you do, I think you will really enjoy it. Obviously, it's not revolutionary like its predecessors, or the predecessors it shares quote unquote DNA with, but it's still a fun flick. And if you do hold it up to Alien and Aliens, at least I would say it is significantly better than some of the sequels and some of this versus Predator nonsense that's come out. So clearly, it handles the Alien franchise in a mature way, and actually seriously looks at it, and for that I appreciate Ridley Scott for returning to sci-fi. If there is a sequel to this movie, I'd be really interested to see it. I hope that they do it really good, and that I hope that they honestly they do go further away from the whole alien thing, and really I would love to see more of this universe, more of what's going on, and kind of dive into some of these questions. So it's really got me really interested about what's to come, and I hope they don't muck it up, because that'd be a bum deal if they did. Okay, guys, as always, thanks for hanging in there.